Imagine scrolling through your social media feed just for 5 minutes. Within that short time, you will preferably encounter dozens of advertisement, promotional videos, sponsor posts, and branded content competing for your attention. While brands continue producing more content than ever before, consumers are becoming increasingly selective about what they choose to watch and engage with. This phenomenon has become even more apparent since the COVID-19 pandemic, where digital media become our primary source of communication, entertainment, and information. As people spend more time online, they are also exposed to an overwhelming amount of promotional content every day rather than capturing attentions. Many advertisements are just simply, ignored. Consumer has gradually developed what researchers describe as advertising fatigue or mental fatigue with overload information. This has this is a condition where repeated exposure to a promotional message causes people to become less responsive to traditional marketing efforts. This raises an important question. If consumers are ignoring advertisements, how can brands still communicate effectively and build trust? Hello everyone, my name is Fanny Padilla from Munich University, and today I will gladly introduce you to my paper, The Influence of Digital Storytelling in Marketing on Brand Image and Brand. One strategy that has been constantly gained attention is digital storytelling. Unlike conventional advertising, digital storytelling focuses on selling products directly and more on creating narratives that allow audience to experience emotions, connect with characters, and relate the story with their own lives, and relate those stories to their own living person. Instead of asking consumers to buy product, storytelling invites customers to become part of the story itself. Many well-known brands have become adopted to this approach rather than emphasizing the product specification or promotional offers. They create campaigns that communicates values, experience, emotional journeys, and expectations. Is that the meaningful narratives can strengthen brands with consumers' perceptions and eventually encourage the greater trust. However, its growing popularity and important research questions remain unanswered. Although every study has shown that storytelling is beneficial for marketing, we still have no relatively little issues about which elements of digital storytelling are actually responsible for brand trust and brand image. Are consumers influenced by more beautiful visuals or compelling narrative, or by the story that allow them to personally relate to the message? These unanswered questions become the motivational reason behind this research. Indonesia provides especially interesting context for the study. As one of the world's most culturally and linguistically diverse country, Indonesian customers often interpret their own personal experience, cultural backgrounds, and social values, which make this diversity in storytelling particularly relevant because consumers are more likely to engage with messages that feel personally meaningful rather than purely promotional. Therefore, understanding how digital storytelling influences Indonesian customers may provide valuable insights, research, and marketing practitioners. The first of my dimensions is actually digital storytelling itself, of course. Digital storytelling itself has three elements, which is perceived aesthetic, narrative structure, and self-reference. The first one, perceived aesthetic, refers to how audience evaluate the visual attractiveness and overall presentation of elements. in digital contents. The dimension itself is narrative structure, where is it focus on how well the story designed and how well it is organized to then attract a satisfying conclusion to help audience understand the message while maintaining their emotional engagement throughout the storytelling process. And the last part is self-reference, which describes the extent to which audience are able to connect story with their own experience, memories, or personal identities. When consumers see themselves reflect in a story, they are generally more likely to process the message on deep emotion. These storytelling dimensions are then supposed to influence brand image, which first one overall perception consumer develop towards a brand. Positive brand image then extends to strengthen brand trust. Consumers' confidence that a brand is reliable, credible, and expectably capable of fulfilling promise with a good honesty. Based on this dimensions, I have prepared this framework, which is the first hypothesis is perceived critic, professor influence brand image, narrative structure, positively brand influence brand image, and self-reference also positively influence brand image, which then propose that brand image then positively influence brand choice. Rather than examining those variables indefinitely, this framework allows us to understand digital storytelling as an interconnected process. Instead of reshape how consumers perceive a brand and those positively voted eventually develop into trust, I conducted a quantitative study using a survey-based research. But then I used this kind of methodology. Within the involved of 256 Indonesian respondents between 18 and 45 years old, we have selected purposive sampling, which the respondents are then asked to watch three specific industries promotional video that use the digital storytelling itself to expose them to the concept of digital storytelling. After watching the videos, respondents are completed a questionnaire consisting of measurement items adapted provisionally validated database into using a 6-point Likert scale, allowing respondents to express varying levels of agreement without providing a neutral. The collected data then analyzed using Bartolini's square sectoral equation modeling or PLSM through Smart PLS. This analytical approach was selected because it is well suited for examining complex relationships among multiple latent variables while simultaneously evaluating both the measurable model and the structural model. However, before interpreting the relationships amongst the variables, one important question still needs to be answered. Can we trust the data? Before discussing whether the data digital storytelling influence brand image and trust, we must ensure the data is reliable and valid. And by that, let us move to the results. The first demonstrated all of these are then the reliability and validity test results, which is considerable considerably reliable and valid because of the Conrad alpha exists zero point 0.5 of all of the dimensions. And then we also have the R squares that has total currents above 53%. And then we have the phonoelect that has not overlapped between each of their own construct, which means they are all well explained. So far, because of this results, we have to be considerably agreed. Digital storytelling engine has this what these results saw these results shows that STI ST1 has a significantly meaningful and reliable impact on brand image. Then you can see that STI2 or SDV also have highly significant impact on brand image. Though in contrary, SDC has weaker positive. However, the weak indicator doesn't mean that they are actually needed or it is remain matters from this. Because from this, we can see that brand image has a really significantly, extremely significant to brand trust. This shows that all of the hypotheses actually have significant and supported, while have maintained their meaningful explanations towards each other. This strategy anticipates brands to significantly use digital storytelling into capturing consumers emotionally and correlate specific message with the brand's image. Expanding all the previous function of the digital storytelling, it has come to the we have come to the recommendation stage. Whereas this paper recommends keep expand the existing literature in creating integrating storytelling dimensions with the brand development construct within the Indonesian marketing process. The study also shows that digital storytelling should be adapted into the algorithm by simplifying narrative arcs into optimizing watch spans and combat social media saturations. Using influencer impact, leveraging third-party credibility to amplify self-preference dimensions, and also building a really good user-generated content into translating the aesthetic and narrative requirements to their audience. And I think this is all from me. Thank you everybody for listening and have a good day.